Hello and welcome to the Tune Under Pod. We remain the only dedicated Newcastle United podcast in the Southern Hemisphere. I did say last week we were going to try and turn the Southern Hemisphere black and white, but after the last two results, that's probably going to get a little bit harder. So I'm Jack, and with me today is Bobby. How are you, Bobby?
I'm going well, thanks.
But how are you really, Bobby, after the other morning?
I still haven't recovered, mate.
We'll get into that. That's all good. And Dimmy, how are you, Dimmy?
Much better today, to be honest, Jack. Struggled yesterday, but it's on to Burnley.
It's maybe a good job we're doing this a little bit after yesterday because it might have been hard.
I don't think I could have spoken on a podcast that was going to be streamed anytime yesterday.
It's a good job for you though that at least one of your teams is doing all right. So how was your day last week at the Melbourne victory against the not so mighty Brisbane Roar?
Mate, it was sensational actually. Was at the pub for about 5 or 6 hours before the game. It was a beautiful Sunday in Melbourne. It was about 21-22. Got the 3 points, 3-0, clean sheet, top of the league. Happy days. At least there's one of my teams who can score and keep clean sheets.
Brisbane are not good, are they? I'm not going to get my hopes up for anything with them this year.
No, don't do that.
They're okay, but they're not going to do anything this year.
Yeah. Anyway, one day we might have a Newcastle victory to talk about on this podcast, but today is not that day. Newcastle haven't won a game of football for over 6 months since we beat Fulham on the last day of last season, already relegated Fulham. So we're going to pick through the debris of that draw against Norwich that kicked off early Wednesday morning here in Australia. And we'll also look forward to the next game against Burnley, which has taken on even greater importance than it already did. So we'll be back after this and we'll get into the Norwich review. So welcome back. So the context for the Norwich game is that we would have gone level on points with them with a win. We would have gone within 3 points of Leeds in 17th as well, at least until they scored a late winner against Crystal Palace, which really was a kick in the bollocks after what we just experienced ourselves that morning. It almost feels pointless to discuss the initial team selection, given what happened after 9 minutes. But Bobby, I'm gonna come to you. It's 5:30 in the morning. You're probably scrolling through Twitter, looking for the Newcastle team and the formation. When you saw what the team was and what the setup was, what was your initial thoughts on the team selection?
I think I was quite happy with the lineup, other than a certain central defender. And I made mention in our chat when it came out. It was a bit of surprise because I think, like everyone else, we were expecting Fernandez to come in. That wasn't to be, and it proved to be our undoing. And the team selection over the last 3 weeks has had to be a bit miffed, to be honest. There's been some mistakes that have been made that have probably cost us 2 wins. And even the Arsenal game, I thought the fullbacks weren't right. But to go back to your question, I was pretty happy with the team and thought, we'll see how this goes.
I think we had proper fullbacks, which was really good. It was kind of more almost because it was of necessity because Richie was injured. So that meant Lewis came in, which was very positive. And I think Manquillo, a lot of us have been saying for a while, Manquillo is probably a better choice than Kraft. It's a little bit of a question about how much influence Graham Jones still has, isn't it, over this team? And the problem is, it's kind of Eddie Howe has not got that much sort of wiggle room or leeway to make mistakes at the moment because he's made a couple of team selections that maybe people wouldn't have disagreed with, and 2 of them, particularly with Darlow and Clark, have really proven to be quite costly. Dimmy, what about you? What did you think about the team when you saw it?
Well, I was happy that Lewis was back. Obviously, Richie being out made that a laydown misère. But like Bobby said, I was very disappointed that Kieran was starting. He hasn't given us anything, to be honest, all season. Fetty still remains, I believe, our best defender, and with Lascelles out, he had to start. Kieran Clark is perhaps at best a centre half in a back three when you're playing 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, but not as a two in a four at the back. So that was a really bad decision, to be honest. And like Bobby said, it wasn't the only one. I mean, the Brentford game, starting Darlow, starting Kraft and Richie against Arsenal last week. There's been a couple of mystifying team lineup decisions early, which makes me a little bit worried that Graham Jones is having a lot more say than we thought he would, and with how and his team coming in. Perhaps they're still trying to work out who the best 11 is, but we don't have time, unfortunately. We need to get results now. There's no time for that, so it's disappointing that that's still happening, but hopefully we can put it right finally this weekend.
I think that's the issue, isn't it? And it's really just being magnified by the two pretty bad mistakes from Darlow, and we'll get onto Clark in a minute. But you just said there, we don't have time for this because of the situation that Eddie Howe's been left with. He has to get everything right straight away, which is really tough. He's only had 3 games, and he obviously wasn't at the Brentford game. It's not like he's had a full pre-season to be able to look at these guys and see what's going to be best. Fernandez is just bizarre. Unless he's been injured, he's getting on, but he's got caps for Argentina. He's quite clearly our best defender.
Well, the rumours have been that he fell out with Graham Jones, and that might have continued. And I'm with Dimmy a bit. No, I think that Howe's relied on his assistant say, I suppose, because we got to remember Clark and Kraft weren't even in the picture under Bruce. They were only reintroduced in the scene with Jones when he got the caretaker gig. So it's obvious that he's been relying on that, and I'm hoping now that he's learnt his lesson and he's learnt to just back himself, because I think he's seen now after the display, Fetty's easily our best defender.
It feels like he's kind of inching towards what his best team might be. It's just unfortunate that we've maybe dropped 4 points at least through mistakes or through decisions that were maybe could have been different. I don't know what anyone thought about Fraser starting as well. I think was it a 4-4-2 or was it kind of like a 4-2-3-1? It's hard to say because it changed so early. But what formation were we starting with, do you think?
I think it was a 4-4-2 transitioning to a 4-2-3-1 at some stages. I think Howe is not going to have a settled formation lineup. I think in different phases of play they'll have different setups, but I think it was a pretty flat 4-4-2 to start with. And I was happy with that. And I think Fraser can play a bit. I think he's quick. He's shown that he's probably the best crosser of the ball we have in the team, which we need to get balls into the box so Wilson has a chance at scoring. I didn't see any surprises. Even Willock, a lot of fans were upset that Hayden didn't start in front of Willock. You saw when Hayden come on, he gave away possession so many times. He doesn't have that in him to play the systems that Howe wants, where you're trying to go forward. And so for me, it wasn't. I prefer Willock, even though he hasn't been at his best. I still think when he gets the ball, he protects it or he goes forward a little bit.
Yeah, he carries it forward. So there was one. Yeah.
Yeah, you go, Dimmy.
Yeah, sorry, Bobby. I was just going to say, he carries the ball forward. Sorry, Jack. He carries the ball forward. Joe Willock. There was one run, I think, late in the game where he dribbled past 2 or 3 and he carried it forward.
Yep.
And I don't think that's what Hayden's not there to do that. He's there just to defend and cut.
There's this idea that without a defensive midfielder such as Hayden, that we maybe lack protection for the defence a little bit. But I mean, Hayden, he plays well sometimes, but it's not like he's sort of peak Makalele or something, you know. He's not particularly a strong defensive midfielder as it is. So I think that's maybe one position that we do need to try and target and get somebody in when we can in that position. I don't know what you thought about Wilson captain instead of Shelvey. That was really notable to me because Shelvey was always captain whenever he played when Lascelles didn't play previously. So I'm not sure maybe whether Eddie Howe wanted him just to focus on his game or to not worry about any other responsibilities. I don't know if that was something that either of you picked up on.
I just think he trusts Wilson. He knows Wilson. And I think he needed big characters in the situation we're at. I think Shelby's sort of shown that he can be untrustworthy in some instances, and you just don't want your captain like that. And I liked it. I think Wilson stood tall, and he has got that presence about him. So I think, I think it was more of a case of Eddie Howe knows him, trusts him, and said, we're in a bit of a pickle here. We're in a situation where we need you to stand up. And it was more to do with that rather than Shelby, because I think Eddie knows him as well as all that. But in a big situation, John Joe has got a temperament issue. So I think it was I was really surprised, but I liked it. I think it was a good decision.
Yeah. So we get to 9 minutes. Nothing much has happened. I was taking notes through the game. Nothing too much has happened by that point. Kieran Clark, first of all, he makes a mistake. He kicks the ball straight into Pukki from a pretty non-threatening position. And then instinctively, stupidly, he drags him down when he's clean through on goal. I don't think there's any debate over the red card. Dimi, Layden, he's made a bad mistake. Instinctively, he's dragged Pukki down. Red card. What about, first of all, the decision for the red card, and then how did that impact Newcastle for the rest of the first half?
It was a blatant red card. I mean, Lewis was sort of covering, but he's clean through on goal. You can't justify anything else. And the fact that obviously it's an instinctual act pulling him back after he made the first mistake, but to do that within 10 minutes of the game to leave us a player short was an absolute horrific mistake. And luckily for us, the first half turned out not too bad for us. I can't really remember Norwich having a clear opportunity after that. We brought Fetty on straight away and had to sacrifice Paul Fraser, who only got 10 minutes. But Fetty slipped in well, and as we thought we would, as he has for us in the past, he's been our most reliable defender probably for the last 2 or 3 years. So the first half, we seemed pretty comfortable. We didn't keep the ball obviously well. We threatened 1 or 2 times on the break from memory. Wilson had half a chance on the turn, but we looked comfortable. Everything was in front of us. It didn't look like Norwich were going to cause us issues. The problem was going to be how long we could last 80 odd minutes with 10 men. How that would affect us.
And it's funny because we actually got stronger in defence after the red card. So just by the fact Fernandez came on instead of Clark, it was actually defensively not a bad thing. We went to what looked like a 4-3-2, so we actually kept 2 players quite far advanced still, which was Wilson and St. Maximin. And Joe Linton came into this kind of midfield destroyer role, which he performed pretty well, considering he's whatever he is. What you've said there is right. Norwich had possession, but they didn't really threaten too much. And we gave a good account of ourselves in the first half. Bobby, thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm still hurt. I keep shaking thinking about the mistake, and it's sort of amplified as the game went on because Norwich provided absolutely nothing. There were no threat to us, and it made it worse because it was 3 points were there. Like we had 11 men on. I think the 3 points were ours for the taking. So it's really frustrating. But yeah, I think when we had a man sent off and we converted back to Fed there, we sort of went back to type. We went back to being that defensive, which I think we've had that practice in the Crystal Palace game and the Brighton game of being pretty solid. And when we scored, we were deservedly in front, which just shows you how poor Norwich is as a side, to be honest. And yeah, the decision of Kieran Clark to get sent off in the 9th minute it's criminal to me. I'm shattered, absolutely shattered. Another 2 points dropped, to be honest.
Norwich had 63% possession by 22 minutes, but as we said, they didn't really do anything with it. So I noticed that Sargent on the right wing had the ball quite a bit, but nothing particularly threatening happened. Billy Gilmore in the middle had a bit of possession, but didn't really seem to be too incisive with that possession. The chances were for Newcastle, really. Joe Linton had a really good shot that flashed over the bar. And St. Maximin almost created something out of nothing at one point. Pass to Wilson that was just cut out. And Joe Linton had another shot as well. So, I think considering we were down to 10 men, it was quite brave in a way to keep two men up front. I think it really shows what Eddie Howe thinks of Joe Linton, that he trusts him to sit back into that midfield role and to go through the defensive work that he did.
Yeah, I think Joe Linton's always been a hard-working player, even when he hasn't been everyone's cup of tea or hasn't shown any talent going forward. But yeah, I think there's a player there, as I said numerous times. I think he's a very good player. He'll be one of our most important in the run home because he just offers so much difference. In attack, he's physical. He holds the ball up. He can slip over now and again, and that tends to happen. But his work rate's incredible, and you can see he loves playing for the club. And I think that's all we ask. We want a team that tries, and I think Joel Linton's a big part of that.
At the red card, then. So it's 9 minutes in. Would you have taken a point at that stage? Were you still thinking? Because obviously it's a situation where we really need 3 points. Dimmy?
Well, at that moment, I probably would have. To be honest, thinking in my head, trying to process what just happened. It wasn't easy, but as I was processing, I'm thinking, okay, teams have done well with 10 men before. We might be able to nick a goal. 80 minutes is going to be tough. I thought for sure Norwich would score. I thought there was no way we're going to hold them out the way our defence has been going of late. So I thought maybe we can nick a goal. I can't see us nicking 2. So that's my theory was we're not going to score 2 with 10 men. We might score 1. So if you offered me a point then, I would have said not good. We needed 3, but we'll take it, I guess. With 10 men for 85 minutes, you can't really ask too much more of the players from what they gave.
And we get to the second half then. So the second half was kind of a half of 2 halves in a way, because we really came out the traps. We were really, really up for it. And I've seen a lot of talk about the crowd. So it doesn't really come through on the TV too well. But the crowd was phenomenal by all accounts. And I could really sense it was that Joe Linton penalty appeal, which probably wasn't a penalty. But that was on about 52 minutes. And you could really sense a feeling that something was building and that we were really going to start trying to attack at that point, or the crowd were up for it. And I think we'd kind of picked up as well that Norwich were not that good and that we could get at them. Then we did get the penalty. So what were your thoughts and feelings at that stage, Bobby, when we got the penalty?
I was in shock because I think, like the crowd, when the red card happened and the first half was like a bit of a blur because you're just trying to process. We were so desperate for the win and the 3 points, and you just think you couldn't see how we'd get the 3 points at all. And you're thinking, a draw's not good enough, but we have to take a draw, and we don't know, And then the second half comes, and I think, as you said, you couldn't hear it on the TV, but I started to believe that we can beat this lot. Then they're offering nothing. Like, they have got nothing that really worries me other than probably Max Aarons on the right hand side. I thought he was quite good. But other than him, I thought, we've got this in the bag. And then when Joel Linton had a penalty, I was screaming and carrying on like an idiot.
Me too. I lost it.
Penalty, you'll give it to everyone else. And I was going nuts. But that lift. You could feel it. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, but I was pumped. And I'm like, we've got this. This is going to be one of these wins that you're going to have. And then when we got the penalty and Callum Wilson got it, and I didn't watch. I said I couldn't watch. So my two daughters had come into the lounge room, and we're eating their breakfast. And I said, just tell me if he scores. And and they did. And I just thought, we're on here. I think we've got it. And about 2 or 3 minutes after that went in, I could start to see a bit of the players' hands on hips. I think we came out in the second half really hard. That our fitness level isn't great. Thanks, Steve Bruce, by the way. It's pretty shambolic, but the boys just they gave it their all in that first half of the second half.
Yeah,
we were absolutely shattered. By the end of it.
What about 4 minutes for the penalty to be awarded then? So it went to. I mean, as soon as it happened, all of the players, and you kind of know when something like that happens, when all the players go to the referee, like in that manner, that it's a penalty. Players don't do that unless. So it went to VAR, and then that took a few minutes, and then the VAR told the ref to go and have a look at the camera. So then that took another 2 minutes. So I think it was 4 minutes in total between the actual incident and the award of the penalty. So I don't know whether that potentially affected things or made. Callum Wilson seems like a pretty cool character, but it wasn't the best penalty.
Well, Tim Krul's got form of saving pens though. That was the one thing that made me nervous. I thought, geez, Tim Krul's almost a penalty specialist these days.
Since Louis van Gaal brought him on in the World Cup.
Yeah, since the World Cup.
Yeah.
Since the World Cup against Mexico. Yeah, I remember watching that one at
that was a proud moment for us, wasn't it?
At the casino, yeah, at the casino. But he's a big boy, Tim Krul. He's got that massive hand, that old school goalkeeper style. And when he got a hand on it initially, I thought, fuck, he's missed it. and then when the ball hit the back of the net, and I think I woke up my parents. I'm pretty sure I did. Started bagging walls, and you thought, okay, now we've got something to hold on to. We've got half an hour to go. The boys are, like Bobby said, they look shattered, but Norwich got nothing. They weren't creating anything, didn't look dangerous, weren't getting behind us. I thought, just don't make a mistake, somebody. Let's just sit on it, time waste, do what you have to do, take your yellow cards for time wasting. Let's just get to 90. And unfortunately, we just couldn't do it.
I've got my note from after, so I've got the penalty, and then my next note says, "Don't sit back" in massive capital letters. But that was about 70 minutes, and Norwich had no shots on goal in the second half by that point. But I didn't really think at the time, and I didn't consider the fact that the players were probably absolutely exhausted. So it's sometimes natural to sit back when you're holding on to a lead anyway. But especially when the players have been working that hard for that amount of time. He tried to shake it up a little bit. So Willett came off for Hayden, and then Almiron came on after 76 minutes for St. Maximin. Hayden did have that shot where he kind of flashed it across the face of goal as well, which came kind of from nowhere, but there was nobody there for it. But yeah, so it was around that 70-minute mark where it was just a case of, can we hold on to this? We were so desperate, and then it gets to 78 minutes, and really Norwich still hadn't threatened, and then there's an aimless ball into the box, and Dubravka. I know that we've all been saying we need Dubravka back, and we do, and it maybe wasn't such a huge error, but Lee, who also does this pod, he's going to get a big head. But he said after the Arsenal game that Dubravka and modern goalkeepers don't seem to catch the ball, or they don't seem to get it out as far as they should, and it kind of happened. So the ball just came in, and Dubravka sort of palmed it out. It went to, there was kind of two Norwich players there, and one of them just pops it back in. And I'm not sure there's maybe any accounting for that finish by Pukki, because Pukki's not that good. But it didn't stop him against Newcastle.
He does.
Of course,
mate,
rifling a great finish into the top corner. But what did you think about Dubravka and the goal in general? How much blame goes on Dubravka for that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've got to give Lee credit. Which
Not too much.
we don't like to do that, do we?
We don't like to do that, no.
As soon as that happened, I had his voice in my ear,
Yeah.
and before the goal scored, and I just thought it looked a Hollywood save.
Yeah.
It did. It looked like he didn't need to do that. He looked like he did it for the cameras, and it's something he's got to stamp out of his game. It did cost us. He should have just either caught it or knocked it out, and he just palmed it into play where who knows what happened. So I think he's got to put his hand up and be at fault for that one. And as you say though, like Pookie doesn't score that against any other Premier League team. Probably not. Maybe in the Championship he does, but definitely against no other Premier League team. And he scores a rocket, and you think, yep, all right, done.
Pookie could lash that, I reckon, another 50 times, and he might have hit the same shot twice. There was no way he was going to hit it any sweeter, but unfortunately for us, he's just absolutely leathered the ball, and Dubravka couldn't do anything. I mean, he had to, like Bobby said, he has to catch it. It wasn't a hard cross. He's just got to come and grab it. There's no pressure around him. There was no danger. There was no attacker attacking the ball. He's just got to come and grab it. The last thing you can do is drop it in your penalty box. Yeah.
Now, the problem was in the first half, he did catch a couple, and I thought, Lee's been calling Newcastle.
He's been on the hotline,
and saying, get him to catch it, and he's been learning. And I thought, that's great. And then, that happened. So it was shattering and totally undeserved for Norwich. Like they didn't deserve it.
No, they didn't look like scoring. Like Jack was saying, they never looked like scoring. It was only going to come from a mistake. It was only going to come from a mistake.
And that's what hurts the most. It's like I felt shattered for the guys. Like in all honesty, you just got to tip your hat at the players because they gave their all. Like one fella makes a huge mistake in the game, and they just don't. The old Newcastle would just drop their heads, and we'd lose that 2-0.
Oh, crumble. We would have crumbled. Yeah, it would have been 2-0 down at half time. Yeah.
But just the fight had me really proud. And when they scored, it was more of that Norwich didn't deserve it. So it was like pricks, it's undeserving.
There was so much resilience and so much fight. And Newcastle fans often say we don't demand a club that wins. We just want a team that tries and a club that tries. And the club under Mike Ashley didn't try, but those 10 players on Tuesday morning really did. They really, really gave it everything, and you could see that at the end. It's that sinking feeling when the ball goes in, and it's just absolutely shattering.
It was just, I think I broke one of my. I'm not going to show you. I've got these little figurine dolls of soccer players on my desk. I think I broke my Leo Messi one again. The head fell off when I smashed my desk. And I could hear when I smashed it, I could hear my mum yelling, "Don't do that again! Don't do that again! Don't break the furniture!" But yeah, it's you can tell the players as well.
Did you explain to her what's just happened though? Did you?
I did. I said, "Look, we just got the goal." I said, "What do you want me to do? I'm reacting in the moment. I'm not. It's not in hindsight. This is my natural reaction. I had to punch something." It was. You could tell the players as well. As soon as that goal went in, I thought, "Oh, we're screwed here. We aren't coming back from this." And I actually thought we might lose from there. I thought just the momentum and the fact that we've been holding out and 10 men for already 70 minutes of the game. I thought this could go one way, and we'll talk about it in a minute. They did have that one golden chance at the end.
I was going to come on to that. So Shah makes a mistake, and
what is he doing? Yeah. What is he doing?
The Norwich player goes clean through, and Dubravka redeemed himself with a really good save. It was a good chance. It was like sort of Joe Linton against Brentford sort of standard, where he should have just put it in the corner. The player.
He's got to score. Yeah, he had to score. I mean, he had all day. Cher wasn't getting near him, and he had all day to pick his spot. And thank goodness Dubravka stood tall for as long as he could, and he made a sensational save. But I was waiting for the net to ripple there. I thought that was over.
I think it compounds the Kieran Clark decision to pull back. Norwich aren't a good team, and they don't have finishers. And Shah made the mistake, but he let Dubravka sort out his mistake. He got the goalkeeper to do his part for what a goalkeeper should do, whereas Clark selfishly made the mistake and then did the horror pullback, where if he had allowed Dubravka one-on-one with Pukki, I would have backed Dubravka. So it sort of compounded that again. We saw it happen in the end, and Dubravka came through with what he does. To be honest, he's a shot stopper. Like, he loves those one-on-one. So,
So this point, another point, we've drawn 7 games now this season. A couple of them we should have won. We should have beaten Watford. We should have beaten Southampton. We should have beaten Brentford. And without Kieran Clark's mistake, we would have beaten Norwich, I think, as well.
Yeah.
This is no comfort to us at the moment, because we're in real trouble. We've played 14 games now and not won a game, and we're into December. Where do you guys think this actually leaves Newcastle, other than up the creek without a paddle? Where, looking at the whole context and the whole situation, where do you think this leaves Newcastle? I'm going to come to you first, Dimmy.
Obviously in a very precarious position, especially after Leeds' result, getting the late winner against Palace. I mean, before the first home game against Brentford, we said to ourselves, okay, we've got Brentford, Norwich and Burnley, with Arsenal mixed in between, coming up at home. We all probably thought 7 points a minimum. 9 points would be obviously sensational, but we thought 7 points minimum. So we've got 2 from 6. So the best we're going to do now is 5, which might not be enough in what it looks like from the points table perspective. But for me, I see something building. I can see something changing with the way we played against Brentford. Arsenal, less so, but the way we played yesterday with 10 men, fought on, had the better chances. There's something building. It's that first win. We've just got to... I don't care how we do it. We just got to... Maybe we got to get Steve Bruce back on the touchline, because he had that much luck for 2 years. We need some of his special powers to get some
of the defenders
penalty or defender.
Again.
Get Freddie Fernandez to score a late winner, or
Yedlin back.
Yedlin
scored a few.
Yeah, Yedlin. Hayden scored a goal against Chelsea. We need some. I don't care how we do it. We just need to get that first win. And I think once we get that first win, I think the weight will lift off the shoulders of the players, and there'll be that the goal will seem a lot more attainable, I think, from fans like us and also from the players. But Burnley becomes the $1 million question now. That it is the game. I mean, there's no other way to put it. We don't get this win this week, it's just about curtains for us. Mentally more so than, obviously there's still 23 games after this one, but mentally speaking, it'd be hard to pull away from the drop zone after a not win.
We'll come on to talk about Burnley in the next part. Bobby, your thoughts about where this leaves the club on the whole, because it's a day and a half or so after the game, so maybe thoughts have settled down a little bit since the time. But yeah, where do you think this leaves Newcastle?
Yeah, naturally I'm a pretty positive person, and I have been right through. And I still remain positive. I do a little bit more digging to see what's going on, and we've been very fortunate that the teams above us haven't really blown away. I know Leeds getting the last minute hurt, but then Watford lost to Chelsea and remain, they've got Man City next, and we've got Burnley. We win that with 3 points adrift from them outside the relegation zone. So we're still in it. But Burnley, come back to me after Burnley, because I'm like Dimmy. I can feel we're building something pretty special with a team that no one thought we could. Like, Howe's got the team he's got. He can't get, and to his credit, he's not talked about January and bringing in signings, but he's improved the likes of Joelinton, Shelby. Those types have become big players. And I just feel something's building. So if we can just get that win against Burnley, I think you'll see a shift in the whole mood at our club. And we'll then attack games like Leicester. Leicester doesn't become an unwinnable match. Leicester's not in great form, and all of a sudden we've got the momentum, and anything can happen. As you said, 23 games with 3 points behind. don't give us up yet. I think the boys deserve us. They've worked hard. They've obviously worked hard on the pitch, and they're showing signs of what we can do. There's just been a couple of mistakes, and I think we used up all our luck under Steve Bruce, unfortunately. But, I feel this is a good story at the end of it. And maybe it's just the bias in me, but I just feel that no one's stayed in the Premier League after not winning a game after 14 matches. So let's be the first.
Yeah.
Let's do it. We're not that far away, to be honest.
Back in the day, nobody had qualified for the next Champions League stage after losing the first 3 games. And Newcastle did that with that big final win. So, records like that are there to be broken. I was feeling despondent after the game. But then I was thinking about it like you, Bobby, and I realised that, what you said about Watford. So they've got Man City next, we've got Burnley, and then, if those results go our way, there's 3 points in it. So, and I think looking at the whole context as well, looking at the big picture. So I put this out on Twitter as well. So 8 weeks ago, not now, but 8 weeks ago yesterday, Newcastle United still were owned by Mike Ashley, still were managed by Steve Bruce. We didn't know that this takeover was going to happen. So the amount of times that I've said over the years that I would take pretty much anything to get rid of Mike Ashley. I would have taken relegation and years in the lower leagues to get rid of him because he was such a drain on the club. So if the worst does happen and we do get relegated, we don't want to talk or think about that yet. But even then, I still think the club's in a better position than what it was with Mike Ashley there. So I think there's a long way to go. I think we've got a really good manager. I think I'm really positive about Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
So kind of regardless of what happens, I think if he can get his best team out there, if we can pick up some good signings in January, then I really do feel quite positive about the club. Even if we do go down, which we have to face up to that. But as you said, there's still such a long way to go, and there's a lot of football to be played. And I'm not scared of Leicester, or I'm not scared of Everton. I'm not scared of Man United at the moment either, really. No. So we'll just ignore the fact we've got Man City and Liverpool in consecutive games, and go on holiday for those games or something. But yeah, I think I really do think there's a lot to be positive about. So despite that upsetting outcome on the other morning. So what we're going to do now is we'll have a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll review the next most important game in the last 10 years, which seems to happen every three or 4 days at the moment. And we'll get into the Burnley game after that. So we'll see you then. Welcome back to the Two and Under pod. We've just done the Norwich review, and now we're going to have a look ahead to Burnley. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning, Queensland time, 2 o'clock Victoria time. So Burnley have only won 1 game this season. They've not got a good record at all this year. They haven't looked particularly good. They've actually been involved in a few exciting games, which is very un-Burnley-like. I think they seem to have signed quite an exciting player, Maxwell Cornet, from I think it was Lyon.
Yeah.
So they're not just kind of pumping the ball towards Ashley Barnes anymore these days. And Chris Wood, they actually seem to have a little bit more about them. Their game against Spurs was postponed at the weekend, and then they got a 0-0 draw away at Wolves. It was this morning. So it's another massive game. I think after we've played this game, we'll have played Southampton, Leeds, Brentford, and Norwich and Burnley all at home. So we really need to win this one, just for the confidence as much as anything. So I'll come to you first, Bobby. So what do you hope from the team selection? Richie and Lascelles are back. Are they going to get straight back in? How do you think we're going to approach this game, and how do you think we need to approach this game?
So I hope that we have the same back four that we ended with at Norwich. I really do. I think Fernandez has to start now, and I thought he justified his spot then against Norwich. Burnley still do have Chris Wood, so they do like to like to him. Unfortunately for us, though, as you pointed out, they do have a very, very talented player in Maxwell Cornet at his feet now. I noticed they played a 4-4-2 against Wolves. And, yeah, they're a really hard side to break down. So I'd like to think we go with the same formation and line up with exchanging Clark for Fernandez and keep it as we did and just attack them. Just try to break them down and play that gung-ho we seem to do at St. James. And go, because, I mean, they do have Dwight McNeil, Goodmanson on the wings and stuff. So it doesn't – they're good players, but they're nothing better than what we have, to be honest. So I'd like to think that we don't make too many changes. I don't want Lascelles back, but I fear that they might bring him in because he's bigger and stronger. And the Chris Wood factor, who always seems to score. There's always a striker that seems to score against us. The New Zealander.
Long list.
Yeah.
The Kiwi, we were linked with him at one stage, weren't we? He's quite a handful but I think Fernandez can handle him. So yeah, I hope they stick with the same team that was there against Norwich, but replacing Clark obviously for Fed.
Do you think we should get someone sent off after 9 minutes just to see what happens again?
Well, I prefer if they don't, to be honest. But I think Burnley will capitalise more so than Norwich did. Yeah. They're a good team, Burnley. Like, I think when I was looking at both fixtures, I thought we needed the 6 points against Norwich because Burnley's going to be a harder nut to crack. I've got respect for Burnley. I think they always are floating around relegation zone, but they somehow lift themselves up because they just become this hard team to play against. And, whilst it's not everyone's cup of tea, you just got to respect different types of football. Like, they know they're not Manchester City. They're not going to play ticky-tack football. They play Burnley-style football, and it's their way, and fair play to them. So it's going to be a hard contest, though.
They've got a draw at Stamford Bridge lately as well, so it's good to laugh at Burnley sometimes. But yeah, you're right. They usually end up around the bottom of the table, and then they usually pick up a run of kind of 5 or 6 wins, and all of a sudden they're out, and then they're not in relegation danger anymore. So I think once Sean Dyche leaves, they probably will just sink. They could just go back into the Championship and do what Stoke have done, and just not be seen again in the Premier League. But they're certainly not an easy team to play against. It's a good job St. Maximin seems to like playing against them, so we need to start him. Dimmy, any thoughts on Burnley?
Yeah,
or
so I was just
Newcastle. How we should
I was just going to say, last year St. Maximin was pivotal in both fixtures. He scored a terrific goal at St. James's and scored that brilliant goal at Turf Moor as well. I remember that game I'm pretty sure that was to put us out of the relegation zone. It was a huge game for us. We're 1-0 down at halftime, playing like absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
We thought, we're done here. We are going down. We are going down without a fight. And then St. Maximin pulls that brilliant solo effort from nowhere. And we're going to need, I think, like Bobby said, they're hard to break down, Burnley. They're a pretty organised team. Sean Dyche has been there and done that in terms of setting his teams up. They're going to be a hard nut to crack. So we might need that something a bit different. Someone to beat a player, to do that something a bit special to crack them. So St. Maximin for me is going to be very important. And I think as well, another crucial player for us on the weekend will be Fraser. I think Fraser for me there's something about Fraser and Wilson that I think is going to come to fruition in the second half of the season. I think the service that we get to Callum Wilson and Joe Linton in the middle is going to be crucial. I think Fraser offering us that balance with St. Maximin on one side and Fraser on the other is going to be very important. If we can get St. Maximin to hold out 2 of their defenders and they double up on him, that should give Fraser that space that he needs. And like Bobby said, he's probably the best crosser of the ball we've got. And against Burnley, that's probably one thing that they're going to relish, and we need to match him in that area. So it's going to be it's going to be an interesting matchup on the flanks, I think.
I know that we don't want Richie to come back in, but do we think he is going to come back in?
I don't think so, to be honest. I don't think so. So Lewis played, I think, that well yesterday, and you can hear Howe's comments after the game. He was very complimentary of Jamal's performance. I think it'd be criminal to drop Lewis after that game, and it would just shatter the kid's confidence. He seems like he's somebody who needs the arm around the shoulder, that bit of confidence saying, you can do the job. Here's your run of fixtures, go do it. So I wouldn't drop Lewis. There's nothing saying you can't play Richie as well, but further up the pitch if you wanted to do it, go that way. And that's what he is. He's a winger. He's not a left back. And I think now that Lewis has got back into the team, I think we can, unless Lewis gets suspended or injured, I think we can finally get rid of that Matt Ritchie to left back or left wing back experiment. It's just not going to work. It hasn't worked. It's never worked. And especially the way we want to play, we'll just get absolutely burnt down his edge if we keep him playing that side.
And it would be nice to get Dummett back as fit as well, just as another option. He's a solid left back. Rafa Benitez said he was just a 7 out of 10 player. So, and you know, in the later stages of his career, he has been that. He's been consistent. He just hasn't been able to stay fit. But I think having him back as an option would be good. In terms of Lascelles, I really can see him coming in for Cher, just because it's Burnley, and I think Ivan Toney showed against Fabian Cher that he's not, you know, he can be beaten in the air. Burnley are likely to play a lot of direct balls towards Chris Wood, so if they stick him on Cher, that could be very, very difficult. So that's why I can see Lascelles coming back in for that reason.
Yeah. I can understand that sort of thinking. I'll put it this way: I wouldn't be too upset if that change happened, although I don't think it's needed. I personally think that Shah offers us so much an attacking sense from the back position that's more vital. We've got to score goals. I don't mind being susceptible at the other end if we're going to score at home. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the way we've got to play. To have Shah, he did it a few times where, I mean, one almost cost us in the end, but where he tries to take on, but he's got past one or two players, and then it opened it up. The space just was there for Shelby to just run into and then create a pass. So with Matt Ritchie, I can't see him being in the team, and I'm Eddie Howe's biggest fan. And it happened over a couple of weeks. As soon as he was announced, I did a lot of research on the bloke and fell in love with him. I just think he's the perfect manager for Newcastle, and I think he's underrated, and I think he's really good, but his team selection has me worried. And if he brings Richie back into a left-back position, I will be really devastated, I think. I'm hoping now, as we said earlier in the pod, that he's sort of coming and getting his mind around what the best team is, and I think he's seen now Jamal Lewis at left-back. Okay, I can work with him. And Fede Fernandez in the middle. I'm hoping that he's seeing that. So yeah, let's hope Richie. I think Richie off the bench is quite good, but don't start with him. No.
I keep thinking as well that Almiron seems like an Eddie Howe kind of player. He works hard. He's got that pace. It's where he fits into the team, because if you're gonna have Fraser, Jollin, and St. Maximin and Wilson, then Almiron doesn't fit into that team. He's not a central midfielder. So maybe it's just because Eddie Howe said a couple of times about players that he hasn't had a chance to see much of them, and obviously there was the international break, so maybe he just wants that bit longer before you can trust Almiron to start a game, or maybe he just does. You know, he knows Fraser, and he's obviously a big fan of Joe Linton, so maybe he just wants to stick what's kind of been working in an attacking sense at the moment.
Yeah, I see Almiron as the odd man out. I think I even think getting towards January, we might see a surprise there with I don't see how he fits into an Eddie Howe team. That's just my personal opinion. I just think he's pace to burn and he gets into good place. He's a hard-working lad, but his technical ability, his position where he plays, I don't see it. And I'm a big Almiron fan. I think coming off the bench in the second half when teams, if we were ever to have 11 men on the pitch, it'd be equal to come on in the second half to run teams. He's handy to have, but starting, I don't see how you can. I'm not dropping Joel Linton, not dropping Maximin. So yeah, I think he's the odd man out, and it'll be interesting the January transfer window, what it shows. I think with Almiron.
He doesn't fit into the 4-3-2 formation, does he, that we play when we get somebody sent off?
No.
Oh gosh.
We'll play Kieran Clark again when he's not suspended, just so he can get sent off, and we can practice playing that formation.
Look, there's been a lot about Kieran Clark, and I was angry, as you all know, in the chat with Kieran Clark. But I mean, having time to digest it, yep, we shouldn't pay out his contract and send him away. We shouldn't abuse the guy anymore. Like, I think he did a lot of good things for us, getting us back up. So, yeah, like, yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. He's been a pretty steady player for the club, and he's scored a couple of important goals. He shouldn't be starting games in the Premier League in 2021, but we all know that.
That's not his fault either.
We all know that anyway. That's not his fault, and I'm glad he hasn't come out and done like an apology, because I cannot stand when players are doing these big apologies for mistakes that they've made. Bruno Fernandes did it for Man United when he missed a penalty. You know, it's like, it's football. Mistakes happen. You know, obviously it was bad, but everyone knows he feels terrible about it anyway. So apologies don't do any good. We might actually need to rely on him again before January in the next busy period. So, and you know, Newcastle fans will give him support. We're not gonna abuse him or anything like that, and he doesn't deserve that. You know, we need to get behind him, I think, if he does play again. But let's just hope he doesn't play again.
We won't abuse you, but just quietly don't play again. Don't ever pull the shirt again. Don't ever put the shirt on it.
Get injured if you need to. Just don't play again.
No, I think it just shows, like, it doesn't show like how you know we've been under Ashley, just no investment. The same defenders that were in the championship are still there.
Yeah.
Rafa seemed to turn him into gold, but I think that was just painting over the cracks, to be honest. And yeah, it just shows that we're that far away from it. But hopefully we get to January.
There's a huge mess to clean up, you know, and Eddie Howe's not going to be able to do that in 3 games. Hopefully, by the time he's had 10 games, he might be able to be on the way to that, but we just have to hope we're not too far adrift. We don't have that kind of time to be able to be making mistakes in team selection or whatever. We need to start getting it right now. So it'll be very interesting at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night to see what the team is. Any final thoughts on Burnley before we wrap up?
Just win. Just
win.
Just win. That's all we need.
We can all get on board with that. Win. Yeah. However you have to win. Just win.
No red cards.
No red cards. It makes things a bit interesting, doesn't it, though? Let us practice
that
formation.
Not at all. Not at all.
Right, so obviously another huge game coming up on Saturday night. So you can actually join a few of us who are doing a live watch along for that. I think Bobby and Craig are in for that. As ever, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. We've already had 1,000 views on YouTube, which, considering we've been going for 2 weeks, is pretty good going. We've also had a few questions come in, which we're going to have a look at when we've got a bit more time, when the football calms down a bit and there's not so many games. We're available from all the usual podcast places. We're also on Twitter at @TuneUnderPod. We'll be back for the review of Burnley next Tuesday. Cheers, boys. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jack.
Let's keep on crossing our fingers for that big 3 points that we so desperately need.
Thanks, Jack.
Bye for now.
See you guys.